For many, a threesome feels like the ultimate fantasy. Yet in reality, if approached without care, it can easily become uncomfortable, disappointing, or even damaging. What seems exciting in the imagination often clashes with real emotions, expectations, and consequences, and beyond personal risks. It's worth remembering that such experiences may conflict with cultural values, ethical standards, or even legal boundaries depending on where you live. Paragraph 1. Misconception leading to error: more people means more pleasure. Within the field of sexual behavior studies, one of the most persistent misconceptions is the belief that adding more participants automatically increases satisfaction. This assumption confuses visual stimulation and fantasy with the reality of lived experience. In truth, when multiple individuals are involved in a sexual encounter, each participant carries a heightened responsibility to regulate emotions, divide attention fairly, and sustain meaningful engagement with others, rather than expanding enjoyment. This often amplifies the psychological and logistical demands placed on everyone. Neuroscience research highlights that pleasure is not solely a matter of physiological stimulation. It is deeply influenced by psychological elements such as trust, safety, and emotional resonance. With additional partners, these elements become harder to maintain, raising the risk of alienation or feeling neglected. Instead of achieving the expected climax of enjoyment, individuals may face confusion, performance anxiety, or emotional detachment. This indicates that pleasure cannot be measured in numerical terms, but must be built on mutual understanding, compatibility, and genuine care. The belief that more equals better thus reflects a flawed and potentially harmful perspective. It not only misguides expectations but also exposes individuals to disappointment and potential psychological strain. A more accurate scientific view suggests that the quality of connection, rather than the quantity of partners, determines the depth of sexual satisfaction. Paragraph 2. Misconception leading to guilt: it is only casual, no strings attached fun. Another widespread misunderstanding in the discourse of group intimacy is the assumption that such experiences can remain detached from emotional consequences. Psychological science, however, shows that sexuality is never purely biological. It is intertwined with cognition and affect. During sexual interaction, the human body releases neurotransmitters such as oxytocin and dopamine, which foster emotional attachment, bonding, and, in some cases, possessiveness. Therefore, imagining that a threesome can occur in a state of pure detachment is an illusion. In many cases, jealousy, insecurity, or imbalanced experiences arise among the participants. The consequences extend beyond awkwardness. They may contribute to long-term emotional distress, diminished self-esteem, or heightened anxiety. Without preparation, open communication, and respect for individual boundaries, such experiences often evolve into sources of regret rather than pleasure. What initially appears as playful and harmless fun often carries psychological complexity that participants fail to anticipate. This complexity may translate into guilt, misunderstanding, or conflict that lasts well beyond the event itself. Hence, the claim of absolute freedom from emotional ties is not supported by scientific evidence. Instead, the human psyche ensures that intimacy remains entangled with relational dynamics, whether acknowledged or not. Paragraph 3. Misconception leading to breakdown: a threesome will reignite the spark. Within the study of intimate partnerships, another common error is to assume that introducing a third partner serves as a remedy for relational stagnation. Social and relationship psychology consistently emphasizes that sustainable bonds are grounded in trust, communication, and mutual respect. When these foundations are eroded, adding another individual introduces more complexity rather than solving the core problems. Group sexual activity, in this light, functions best as a supplemental element, a secondary layer of exploration added to an already flourishing relationship. It cannot substitute for emotional intimacy, nor can it heal existing fractures. Misusing it as a treatment risks exacerbating insecurities, triggering unfavorable comparisons, and deepening emotional distance, instead of rekindling passion. The outcome is often alienation, wounded self-esteem, or, in many cases, the dissolution of the relationship itself. The scientific perspective views threesomes as enhancements, not solutions. Like spices in a meal, they can enrich an already satisfying foundation but will not save a dish that lacks balance. Believing otherwise is not only misleading but potentially destructive, since sexual novelty cannot replace the fundamental psychological and relational elements that sustain long-term connection. Paragraph 4. Comprehensive consent. In the domain of social and behavioral sciences, the cornerstone of any healthy intimate interaction is consent. This notion, however, must be understood beyond the simplistic act of saying yes. True consent is a multidimensional construct involving enthusiasm, clarity, and freedom from pressure. Psychological research demonstrates that when an individual engages in intimacy without genuine willingness, the likelihood of emotional harm, feelings of exploitation, or relational imbalance significantly increases. Authentic consent operates across 3 levels: cognitive, understanding the nature of the activity; emotional, feeling comfortable and genuinely excited; and behavioral, participating voluntarily without coercion. In the context of 3 participants, the complexity is magnified, since each individual must not only ensure their own comfort but also acknowledge and respect the readiness of the other 2. Without this foundation, the experience risks devolving into conflict, jealousy, or long-term psychological distress. Consent in this sense is not a superficial ritual but the ethical, legal, and scientific backbone of equitable interaction. It secures safety, nurtures respect, and establishes a framework where intimacy can be experienced without fear of exploitation. Thus, consent is more than permission, it is the collective agreement that transforms an act into a meaningful and human-centered experience. Paragraph 5. Multi-layered communication. Interpersonal communication research highlights that transparent dialogue before, during, and after intimate experiences is indispensable for psychological and physical well-being. Prior to the event, discussions about expectations, personal boundaries, and health-related precautions establish a shared framework. During the process, verbal affirmations and non-verbal cues function as real-time mechanisms for adjusting pace and comfort levels. Post-encounter conversations, often referred to in sexology as aftercare, play an essential role in processing emotions, reducing anxiety, and ensuring that no participant feels isolated or dismissed. From a neurobiological perspective, such communication reinforces feelings of safety by triggering oxytocin pathways, which are responsible for trust and bonding. Conversely, the absence of clear communication can amplify misunderstandings, potentially escalating into emotional conflict. Importantly, communication does not strip away the sense of excitement, rather, it enhances the potential for pleasure by aligning expectations and minimizing uncertainty. Scientific evidence thus frames communication not as an optional courtesy but as an operational tool, ensuring synchronization, emotional safety, and sustainable intimacy. Paragraph 6. Selecting the right participant. Psychology of relationships emphasizes that the selection of an intimate partner is not merely about attraction but also about compatibility of values, boundaries, and long-term expectations. When a third person is introduced into an existing relationship, the dynamics change substantially. If the choice is careless, risks of jealousy, insecurity, or relational imbalance escalate. On the other hand, a carefully considered choice based on mutual respect, emotional maturity, and awareness of personal boundaries reduces potential risks. Research in attachment theory likens the addition of a new individual to inserting a variable into a complex equation. The overall stability of the system depends on the harmony of all its components. Social context also plays a significant role. For example, involving someone from a shared social circle or workplace may create prolonged complications outside the immediate experience. Therefore, the selection of the third participant is not a private decision alone but a social and psychological calculation. Choosing the right person in this sense requires foresight and deliberation, as it has enduring consequences for emotional stability and interpersonal harmony. Paragraph 7. Connection over choreography. Empirical studies in sexual behavior indicate that fulfillment rarely emerges from reproducing scripted scenarios, such as those portrayed in pornography. Instead, genuine satisfaction arises from emotional presence and interpersonal connection. When individuals overemphasize performance or choreography, they risk ignoring subtle cues of comfort or discomfort, leading to artificiality and tension. Conversely, adopting a slower pace, allowing for spontaneity, and prioritizing genuine pleasure creates opportunities for deeper intimacy. From a neuroscientific perspective, this shift in focus from performance to feeling activates brain regions responsible for empathy and emotional processing, such as the insular and anterior cingulate cortex. These activations strengthen relational bonding and enhance perceived authenticity. The evidence suggests that intimacy modeled on responsiveness and connection generates more profound experiences than one based on mechanical precision. Rather than chasing a cinematic ideal, attending to mutual responsiveness transforms the act into a human-centered exchange. Thus, the principle of prioritizing connection reflects a scientifically supported path toward authentic intimacy, where emotional resonance, rather than staged choreography, drives satisfaction. Paragraph 8. Rest and rotational attention. Physiological and psychological sciences agree that rest is a vital part of any physically and emotionally demanding activity. In group intimacy, where intensity is heightened, deliberate pauses are particularly valuable. Rest allows individuals to regulate heart rate, restore equilibrium, and reflect on their emotional state. Simultaneously, rotational attention shifting focus naturally among participants prevents feelings of exclusion and fosters inclusivity. Sociological perspectives describe this dynamic as a collective dance, where rhythm and engagement emerge organically rather than being imposed rigidly. Attempting to force constant, simultaneous engagement risks creating stress and diminishing enjoyment. Psychological research demonstrates that breaks interspersed with shifts in attention not only enhance physical stamina but also reinforce perceptions of care and mutual respect. Instead of being interruptions, pauses and attention sharing operate as mechanisms of balance, ensuring sustainability and fairness. This principle underscores that intimacy should not mimic a rigid formula but should flow dynamically, with rest and attentiveness acting as integral components. By embracing natural rhythm, participants maintain both physical endurance and emotional connection, ensuring that the experience remains humane, safe, and mutually affirming. In the study of sexual behavior and interpersonal dynamics, the essence of a threesome does not primarily rest on the physical dimension, but rather on underlying factors such as trust, self-awareness, and the capacity to expand emotional connection. Physical intimacy serves as the surface expression. The deeper determinants of lasting satisfaction lie in the sense of being respected, acknowledged, and valued as an individual. Trust provides psychological safety. Self-awareness allows each participant to recognize personal boundaries and desires, and expanded connection fosters synchronization among diverse emotional currents. When these conditions are present, the experience can evolve into a moment of bonding, curiosity, and exploration, potentially enriching one's understanding of self and others. Conversely, without these foundations, initial excitement may rapidly transform into disappointment, conflict, or emotional harm. From both ethical and legal perspectives, it is crucial to recognize that such practices may not be appropriate or permissible in all cultural or societal contexts. Therefore, rather than perceiving it solely as a pursuit of pleasure, the focus should remain on ensuring safety, fairness, and social responsibility. A threesome, when grounded in a healthy framework, has the potential to broaden perspectives and reinforce interpersonal bonds, but only when situated within the boundaries of voluntary participation, emotional care, and alignment with cultural and legal norms. Thank you for listening until the very end. If today's story has gently stirred your heart, whether through an old memory, a present feeling, or something never spoken into words, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Intimate wisdom is where we come together to touch the hidden corners of love, affection, and sexuality, things that may seem private, yet are in fact the very core of happiness. I wish you to always love deeply, live truthfully, and find yourself in every glance, every touch, and every trembling heartbeat. Affectionate greetings.